How is it going, everybody? This is Sean Barnes. I want to welcome you to episode 25 of The Way of the Wolf. On the show today, I'm going to be talking about how to ask for a raise. Now, admittedly, I've struggled with this in my career. I think that I've always had this mindset of if I work hard, I'll be noticed and will be compensated fairly. I've never had a desire to be overcompensated. I mean, yeah, that would be nice. But for me, I really just want to be compensated fairly for the job that I do and the value that I bring to the organization. And there have been times in my career where I absolutely was not compensated fairly. I worked for an oilfield services company for many years. And in that role, I had a little over 20 engineers and 3 data centers and 600 servers supporting 3,000 employees across the entire globe. And I was making $80,000 a year because of where I started when I started working for that company. Whenever I transitioned out of that role, I actually saw the job offer for my replacement where they were paying this person $135,000 a year. That stung. That's very challenging, a tough pill to swallow. In recent years, as I've progressed in my career, I've been approached numerous times on employees wanting to get a raise, and some do a very good job of this, and others are just a complete dumpster fire, quite frankly. I've been getting a lot of this recently as far as employees or friends or people that I coach or work with asking, hey, how do I have this conversation with my boss? And initially I was going to create a short YouTube video on it, but I felt I want to spend a little bit more time delving into this topic because there's some really important things that I think people should pay attention to. So I'm actually pretty excited about this episode. One thing I will say is this is feedback from my perspective. Now, admittedly, I probably have a little bit of a different approach than some leaders. So it's going to be important for you to know and have a strong relationship with your boss to get a sense of where their head is at. You want to be able to read that person and know, hey, is he or she getting uncomfortable? How do I pivot this conversation to get the most out of it? So a few little things that I just want to mention before really delving into this. First and foremost, I want you to ask yourself the question, do you really deserve a raise? And I mean, a lot of times people think, okay, well, I've been with the company for 10 years. I deserve a raise. Okay, well, the role that you're filling, are you fairly compensated for that role? Unless you're in a union, it's important to keep that in mind. All right, so let's get into some do's and don'ts for asking for a raise. I'll start off with the don'ts first. All right. Well, I kind of already touched on this, but don't assume you deserve a raise just because you've been with the company for 10 or 15 years or because you show up and do your job as it's written on your job description. I see this, I'm going to speak in generalities here, but I see this with younger people that come into the workforce and have aspirations to grow and excel in their career. And to be quite honest, I was the exact same way. I was scratching and clawing and trying to figure out, how do I climb that corporate ladder? How do I make as much money as possible? And it took me a good probably 10 or 15 years to realize that's not the way. That's not the approach that you take. And that very well, as I'm sitting here sharing all of this, may have been why I wasn't able to achieve the level of compensation that I wanted to at that company that I had just mentioned earlier. All right, well, here we are, living and learning. Okay, so next, it's important that you don't approach your boss when you're frustrated or just kind of in a random hallway conversation. You need to be prepared. You need to sit down, have a conversation when both parties are in the right mindset. And I'm going to dive a little bit more into that whenever we talk about what to do. But definitely don't just kind of off the cuff ask your boss or make smart remarks about, well, hey, it'd be nice to get paid more, whatever that is. Don't do that, because that will definitely put a bad taste in their mouth. Don't come in with a lack of research when it comes to benchmarking data and analysis. Now, that seems a little bit obvious, but I feel that it's worth mentioning and talking through, because I've had conversations with people that just, I want to raise. Okay, well, where are you at in relation to benchmarking and industry norms for the role that you do? You don't want to find yourself in that position. Okay, so again, I'm going to delve into that on the do side of things, but also it's important whenever you're doing your research, don't assume that one source, salary.com, that's an easy one to go to, don't assume that that is 100% accurate. Market conditions change from year to year. We've seen that over the 2020 year with the pandemic. Compensation has dropped off, unemployment skyrocketed, comp numbers dropped off. It's been kind of a mess. And it's also important to realize that the market dictates what people are worth. So while you might have a data point from salary.com, or there's quite a few different websites that can help you in doing your research on this. So don't just assume you go to one page and take that for gospel, okay? All right, now let's go ahead and switch over to things you should be doing. First and foremost, you've got to come in with a plan. You can't wing it. You can't be an off-the-cuff conversation. Sit down, have conversations with friends, with family, with coworkers, or maybe other members of senior leadership that you have a good relationship with, and ask for their guidance, especially if those other members of senior leadership that you have relationships with have relationships with your boss. They can share a few things about their perspective and how to approach that conversation. And that also kind of speaks to the importance of building relationships with as many people as possible in your organization. When you have those strong relationships and you're supporting other senior leaders, it makes it easier for your boss to come to the table and say, hey, that person's boss, hey, can I give this person a raise? Oh yeah, for sure. They're fantastic. They're helping me out all the time. So while it seems, like it might not make total sense if you are a server administrator to spend a tremendous amount of time building relationships, because you think, oh, well, I work on servers. Why do I need to build relationships? Well, that's why. Because you want to be able to have a brand and a reputation for delivering results. It makes it much easier whenever you do come to the table asking for a raise. Get on your boss's calendar and make time to have a sit-down conversation where you talk through what's going on, talk through where your head is at, and get a sense of where their head is at. Outline all of the successes that you've had in your role. Talk through the situations and instances where you've gone above and beyond the duties listed in your job description. Include examples around leading other members of the team or helping other teams that are completely on opposite ends of the business become successful. And that really kind of falls into focusing on the value that you create instead of the individual tasks that you do. You want to talk about how you're solving business problems, how you're saving the company money by projects and initiatives that you're working on. Try to come figure out a way to quantify the value that you bring to the company. If you're able to save $40,000 by implementing a new technology or new solution, bring that to the table. That creates leverage for you, and it immediately quantifies the impact and value that you're having on the organization. Don't come to the conversation saying, oh, well, I do all these reports. I assemble all these tools. All right. Really focus on the value that you create to the organization. And finally, patience is key. You have to be patient. This is something that I've struggled with quite a bit in my career and in life in general. I am not a patient person. I'm getting there. It's taking a long time, but I'm getting there. And it has served me well to just realize there is a process to all of this. And if it doesn't happen right now, there's a reason why. You've got to ask yourself, why isn't it happening right now? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do differently to achieve the goals and the compensation that I feel I'm worth? There may be times when the company's just not going to get there. And if you've done all of these things, if you've had all of these conversations and been prepared and showed the value that you bring to the company, you might have to make a tough decision and go somewhere else. The company that I cited earlier, whenever I left, I went to work for another company making $45,000 a year more than I was in that other role for a much smaller position or role. I was still leading a team of engineers, but a much, much smaller team. And it was a lot less stressful. There are times when you've got to bite the bullet and move on to something more. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Still a little bit of a short episode, but I felt it was important for a lot of people to hear this. Do the work, do your research, make a plan, and patience is key. All of those things are very important when you come to the table and are trying to get what you're worth. Like I said, I've had a few conversations with different people that work at my company or outside or friends or people that I've met on Facebook, things like that. If you've got a situation that you're really struggling with, please feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to have these types of conversations. So if you are struggling, email me, Sean at The Way of the Wolf. Say, hey, I've got some challenges here. I want your guidance on it. Happy to have those conversations. That's all I got for today. Y'all have a good one.